So Nat, the Deep View published its first long-form story this week, which we're very proud of. It's called AI's Utopian Promise Masks a Race for Power. So I want to talk to you a little bit. This is your story. You put a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this one. What sparked the story?
So, what sparked the story was honestly, there were a lot of things that I wanted to fit into it, especially recently in the last couple of months with everything that's going on with Anthropic and the Pentagon and all of these massive funding rounds. But what initially sparked the story was a couple of months ago, back in October, I kept seeing all of these massive, multiple $100 billion data center deals coming through with a lot of the same names. You'd see a lot of NVIDIA, a lot of SoftBank, a lot of Oracle, a lot of Meta, I believe. And it just felt like, wow, these numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what do they even mean
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah.
So I sat down and I started just writing. Honestly, it just started with me writing about how I felt about it, about how I felt about this whole situation. Um, and I remembered a TikTok that I saw. That's actually the lead, a TikTok that I saw in 2021
Yeah.
from Grimes, everybody's favorite pop icon. That talked about this like fantasy utopian idea of what AI could promise, about how it could automate all of our lives and essentially achieve this utopia where no one has to work.
Yeah.
Um, and that I
Infinite
realized
abundance.
that. Hmm?
Infinite abundance, right?
Infinite abundance. And I realized, like, even though, of course, that was, Grimes, someone who you wouldn't necessarily think of as a thought leader in technology. No offense, Grimes, you're lovely. Um, that is the same idea that I saw coming up over and over and over again in all of these promises from these big tech companies. This
Yeah.
promise of AI saving us thousands of hours of work and AI super intelligence that can supercharge humanity. Um, and I realized that as they were saying these words while they were also centralizing billions and billions and billions in power and influence in energy in data centers. Um, and it's when I came up with like one of my favorite lines in the entire piece, which is there is no such thing as financially motivated altruism.
Yes.
And I wrote that in October and I kept it in the back of my mind ever since. And in that time, a lot happened at the Deep View. So I put um, my this opinion piece that I had just written at 11 p.m. one night when I was just angry. Um, I put it on the back burner and I came back to it a couple of months later when you and I were talking about it and when we were all together in New York back in February. Um, and I was like, oh, wait, this is a theme that just continued to come up and up and up.
Hmm.
And I realized there might be a way that we can incorporate it into a longer form story. And
The story really looks at the fact that there are a number of ways that power is being centralized. And look, we also acknowledge, I think, when we were talking about it, that there's certain aspects of capitalism where it wants to give to centralize in a few winners, right? And so, but there are ways to work, against that. And there are ways to think about it. But really, it started by thinking about what are the impacts of power in the AI industry being centralized in too few hands.
the impact is that no matter what the outcome is, the motivation will always be to consolidate more power and to consolidate more money and to consolidate more influence. Um, so even if all of the I tried to not write too much about like, oh, this is all of the bad things that can happen as a result of AI. I tried to make the point of the fact that even if AI is literally only used for good, that means that those wins, all of the wins of humanity, are then belong to the tech companies that built the foundational models that created those wins. Every, you know, every good thing, every cure, every, I don't know, solution, every scientific breakthrough is then owed to OpenAI or Google or Anthropic.
And the challenge is that good means different things to different people.
Yeah.
And what
Everyone
is
has a different
good?
moral compass.
Yeah, exactly. And so if it's centralized in too few hands, it just puts us at risk of not having as many options, us as humanity, as not having, you know, our options narrow if it's in too few hands. So what do we do about it? What can be done to get to a better place?
I mean, there's a couple of things. One is feeding the startup market. There are a lot of really cool startups doing a lot of very cool things. And that's not to say that those startups aren't also financially motivated. Of course, every company
Sure.
wants to make money. But when you feed an ecosystem and make it diverse, then that means a lot of different ideas of how AI can be used, how AI should be used. A lot of different voices of innovation can be nurtured. We can nurture the open source market as well, because that's kind of the bread and butter of open source, is doing things just for the purpose of innovation and sharing that innovation among people. And finally, we can put more leverage into the hands of researchers, into the hands of academia, into the hands of NGOs and nonprofits, and we can listen to them when they say that, you know, some things might be too dangerous, or some things AI shouldn't be used for. We can listen to all of the warning signs, for example.
So people like Yashua Bengio, Fei Li, even Jan LeCun is a little more of a you know, professor than a startup founder, even though he's got, you know, those credentials too. You're saying that if those folks, as well as the, you know, other folks in academia, have a bigger seat at the table. Not that it's again, not to put all the power in their hands either, but if they get a bigger seat at the table, then potentially we have the opportunity for some better outcomes, or at least more diverse outcomes.
We can maybe ward off some of the damage that might be caused by putting the power into the hands of a few companies whose drive is first and foremost, like something we shouldn't forget, financially motivated.
They're public companies, or soon to be public companies. Their number one motivation is always going to be returning value to shareholders, not what's best for humanity. That's your line on there's no such thing as financially driven altruism.
Yeah.
Which I love, as you know. So what you're really saying is, if we can have some bottom up innovation to counterbalance some of the top down innovation, because the danger with it being, with AI being such a powerful technology, more powerful than anything we've faced so far in the technology industry. If we have the counterbalance of some bottom up innovation, open source, startups, you know, academics, ecosystem stuff, then that helps to make sure we have the opportunity for more options. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, the good thing is this is the first of many long forms that we're going to do. Thank you for doing it. You know, you put so much heart, so much research, so much thought into it. You let me sort of, you know, push back against some of those thoughts and came to such a great place with the story. So proud of this story. And we want to invite people to read the story, to let us know your thoughts. You can do that on X, LinkedIn, email. Both of us are at first name at thedeepview.ai. And we've got more coming. So if you have ideas for other stories that you'd like to have a deeper view on, then let us know.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Not at all.
It's the punniest pun we've got. All right. Thank you, Nat. And thanks everybody for listening, for reading. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.